We move on to the second test of the India versus England tour, and the first test at Leeds have been hammered by the host. I have Nia with me. I have Orko. Orko, starting with you. Your thoughts on what happened in the first test in Leeds? Can we say it was a transition phase? We continue to say it's a transition phase for Team India, but our expectations always be there for the men in blue. Your thoughts overall performances while the batting looked good, the tail ender problem away from home continues for India. But what about the bowling? Does that need to be looked into a lot? I think.
Well, I think the bowling quality has no question. I mean, they do have good bowlers, but it's just that a few bowlers are not getting the lines or perhaps the lengths right. If you look at Prasid, he was a bit too short, I would say. I think he was brilliant in the last day, but the kind of cricket England plays, they almost always accumulated a boundary every over. So that really, took the shin out of his bowling, even though he did deliver with a few wickets in the last day. But I think they need to, bring that line and length factor ahead. And of course, a big concern is our lower order batting because when you go to England, that's what the English team boasts of. It's like they are a team where almost all 11 of them can bat, whereas our
Yep.
batting literally ends after the fifth wicket is gone. And that's been a chronic concern, not just now, but perhaps a decade, you could say. And we thought that with Gambhir, you would expect that concern to be sorted because Gambhir, even in KKR, had this template of, batting deep, but somehow that has still not yet transpired in the test format. So with time, I hope that happens. They do have a bunch of all-rounders available if they want to increase the depth and add
Yep.
a bowling option. So it's to be seen as to what they do in the coming test.
That will be interesting for all of us, to be honest. But Neha, you know this. We all have been watching it as an Indian fan, but you being an RC fan too, you know Virat Kohli's tactics in terms of when he was the captain and changed the complexion of Test cricket for Team India and also for the world. He went with six genuine batters and then five genuine bowlers. But Rohit Sharma and the others brought the template of having an extra batter as a bowling all rounder or a batting all rounder. You have at number 7 and 8. Your formula, what should you do if you are there away from home in conditions like this? Should your target be picking up 20 wickets first, or do you want a cushion of adding 30-40 runs extra in the lower middle order?
Hi, Preetham. Once again, really happy to be here. Not in an RCB fan capacity, perhaps, but just looking at the kind of outcome that India did have in the first test. I think as fans, it's very easy for us to jump to conclusions and be like, hey, this is not the brand of cricket we want to play. What's up with the philosophy and strategy? I mean, being one of the bigger Virat Kohli fans in the room, probably I would come out and say that the style of captaincy that he embraced in Test cricket is for everyone to see, right? The kind of wins he notched, the kind of win percentage he had, but more importantly, the philosophy, right, of just going in with bowlers who will get you 20 wickets on any given day. But it's also
Yep.
probably important to understand the kind of circumstances and conditions that England is, kind of preparing right now. It's peak England summer. The kind of wickets again are just going to favor your batters because batters from both sides, really had a very good time. You could see bowlers sort of struggle, right? In an ideal world, yes, I would love for India to go for a 6-5 philosophy where you have five
Mhm.
gen bowlers who will get you wickets in any
Correct.
given day. But the cushion of having those extra runs definitely helps. But in this case, India needs to beef up their bowling, right? We had a lot of interesting conversations. I think about the kind of team combination India might be opting for. I think
Mhm.
Ryan Tenduskate kind of gave us a
Correct.
sneak peek into what we can expect. So interesting times definitely, but go for the 20 wickets when you can. This is Test match cricket, right? And Virat Kohli, the Test captain, definitely being missed, but too early to jump on the bandwagon and start hating on Shubman Gill, as you see with the discourse
Yeah,
online,
true
right?
that. Absolutely, definitely. It's too early to say such thing. Let's give him at least a series or two before we judge. Similarly for the management as well, starting with the head coach. But you said our Ryan Tenduskar has given a lot of things, informations in the press conference. He has definitely given us a lot of headaches in terms of the predicted playing 11 as well. We'll come to that. But Orko, here is coming your first question from the guest section. Gurpal Paji says, hearing that yes, Prasidh Krishna, Akashdeep, and Mohammad Siraj are likely to be the front three pacers. You may never know. You may never know. Out of the blue, you might see Jasprit Bumrah coming into the side. There is no decision about him. Nitish Kumar Reddy was in the slip cordon, so he's certainly playing there. Why can't we have an Arshdeep Singh? And that has been the question since the time we lost the first test. Why can't we have an Arshdeep Singh to the side having a left arm angle? Questions coming of two spinners. Your thoughts on that? First of all, why can't we have an Arshdeep Singh to the side?
Well, definitely. I think Arshdeep does have the quality, and that left arm rare element that he brings. Even before the series, when we had a chat on WhatsApp, you and I were often talking about this, that we need to use Arshdeep at some point in the series, and look at the red ball abilities that he has. I mean, people have just deemed him as a white ball specialist, but I think he has got enough ability to succeed in the red ball level as well. So certainly, sooner than later, I hope they look at him. But again, the options that we had, Siraj, very well known for his performances abroad. Bumrah, of course, is untouchable. He's the one who should be playing every game. And I think Prasidh is someone whom they have backed purely based on his recent form. I think his domestic season went well, followed by the IPL where he won the purple cap. So that's maybe why they trusted recency more than ability. And I think that's
And
why
is it
they
also
looked
the
at
captain
Prasidh.
who's
But
of the same franchisee?
could be. I mean, Sai Sudarshan again, someone from the same franchise. But if you do look at spinners, then maybe Sundar should make the mix. If there is something like, a Gujarat Titans preference, then I think Sundar can also be in the mix. But tactically, if you look at
Sundar has
England, do
been
have a lot
heavily
of
backed by
right-handers.
Gautam Gambhir since they bought it
Gautam
off
Gambhir as
Chennai.
well. Yeah, and there are certain rumors where people say that because Gambhir wanted to promote Sundar, they really rushed into Ashwin's retirement as well. That's of
Agree.
course a different story to talk about. But I think Sundar certainly has proven himself in overseas conditions, especially with the bat. In that series against Australia 3 years back, I think he's someone who does have the temperament as a batter and also adds value with the ball. England doesn't have too many left-handers,
Correct.
but I think Sundar, of course, is an overall package that anyone would love to have. But if you look at the track record which the English players have, they do kind of struggle against Chinaman bowlers like Kuldeep Yadav. So if they really want to bring in a surprise element, then even Kuldeep could be in the mix. And that's what you get from a country like India, where every position is up for grabs. Everyone is someone who speaks highly or is capable enough of taking your place. So I think the debates will continue raging, and as long as the performances don't come, we really don't know what our best combination is yet.
Absolutely, we really, really don't know. But there is an interesting fact as the questions keep on coming from Gurpal Paji. Nia, coming to you. Gary the GOAT, we talk about Nathan Lyon. He has 550 more wickets in Test match cricket. And thoughts on that, because spinners often get that rough in the day 4 and day 5, certainly because of the quality seamers they have in the side. As Paji is mentioning here about Mitchell Stark creating that rough, is that one of the reason? And I certainly want to know, why can't we play a frontline spinner? I will be shocked if you tell me that Jadeja is your frontline spinner. He's not. He's your default spinner. But why can't we have somebody like a Kuldeep Yadav?
No, honestly, I think that's a wonderful point brought in by Gurpal Paji there, because Nathan Lyon has clearly benefited from having someone like a Mitchell Stark being such a quality seamer, being able to generate that sort of a rough, and that's obviously led to that. But again, just coming back to the Indian side of things, we have a good pace attack, but again, this is just the first Test match. You got to give them
Mhm.
time to acclimatize and get used to the conditions. Probably it's also reflective of how the IPL just got over. The players didn't have a lot
Correct.
of time to get used to playing red ball cricket. So hopefully our pacers can also sort of do that for the spinners. I can see how Jadeja is trying to get a little bit off the surface, especially on day 4, day 5, but clearly wasn't working out so much.
But has
And
he
again,
been
it is
that attacking in terms of bowling?
not really, Preetham, and that's where the whole concern comes in, right? That we should probably go for a frontline spinner, and the whole Washington Sundar versus Kuldeep Yadav debate becomes all the more pertinent and relevant. A left field choice that I would probably say is, can we probably just sideline Jadeja and bring in both Washington and Kuldeep? But that would
That would
probably
be a
not
very,
be
very
done.
good move, I must tell you. But here is coming all the way from Naman. Thank you for the comment as well. He says that Tendo mentioned that either a Washi or Kuldeep is certainly playing. Two spinners is certainly playing, is what Tendo mentioned. He did not mention. He said all the three spinners are doing well. But your thoughts on, what if Washi plays ahead of Kuldeep Yadav in terms of bowling department? Will that be defensive? But carrying your point of having both Washi and Kuldeep playing instead of Jadeja.
Yeah, I mean, that would again be a left field choice and may not really go down well with a lot of Indian fans. But again, with the Washi versus Kuldeep point, probably bringing in Washi just gives you that sort of an extra batting cushion, something India did sort of struggle with, right? Especially in the first Test. But Kuldeep Yadav is again a proven customer. He has done really well, and there's
Mhm.
no reason why he should really be sidelined. Again, that does kind of bring into contention as to who does he potentially replace. What does it mean for that playing 11 at large? India definitely is confronted with a lot of interesting permutations and
Correct.
combinations that can be explored. But Jadeja is clearly looking past his prime, And in overseas
Absolutely.
tests too, yeah, it has
Absolutely.
come under the scanner.
And when it comes to Ravindra Jadeja, first thing we talk about is fielding, and one of his drop catches in the first game costed us. And not to take away what Yashasvi Jaiswal did, but that's a very interesting point. And we talk about fielding, we talk about away from home, we talk about a slip cotton and gully. But if Jadeja is fielding at backward point, I think he's easily replaceable in terms of his quality. But Orko, very interesting point coming off two questions, which is the same one, saying that can we swap positions of Karun Nair and Sai Sudarshan? Can we see Sai at 6 and Karun Nair at 3? Is that possible by any chance?
Well, I think Sai plays pace very well, and I do want him to continue at the position he is in, and he's certainly used to that position. Even in domestic cricket, he's a more of a player who has played up the order, at least as an opener or as a number three. So I think again, looking at his recent form in that particular position, I know it's a different format, but I believe that Sai can be continued to back at least for now at the number three spot, and Karun has to somehow make his way down the order, or even if he doesn't do, then people like Jural are certainly waiting to enter the mix. Or if they want an extra bowling option, then
Hmm.
Sundar is more than potent to play in his place, because Sundar is someone in domestic cricket even opened the innings for Tamil Nadu, so he's certainly not new to batting at any position that he's given. Plus the bowling that he adds, so I think. A lot of heat is on Karun Nair at the moment because we do
Correct.
know that domestic performance has brought him here. There's even an Abhimanyu Ishwaran who also had a similar domestic season, but he's not getting the preference which Karun is. So I think a lot of heat on him, and if the bat doesn't do the talking, then there are ample options who can be looked at.
Absolutely. There are plenty of options. We're talking about bowling all rounders. Suddenly, we might see Washington Sundar taking the spot of Karun Nair. We won't be surprised if we see that day after tomorrow as well. But talking about the numbers, while the questions continue to come for the Indian playing 11, will come shortly as well. Edgbaston has not been a happy hunting ground for Team India in red, Neha, because the red ball cricket, 7 losses out of 8, and one match has been a draw. Can India, led by Shubman Gill, break this record?
Honestly, Preetham, India would be sort of, not carrying the baggage, because one of the first things that I think Shubman Gill did address in his conversation, if I'm not wrong, with Dinesh Karthik, was the fact that, this is a fresh new team. They're not carrying the baggage of the past, not looking too much into history,
Correct.
so to say. India probably has put in a lot of individual performances to remember, right? Be it that Virat Kohli's 149 and a lot of other knocks as well. It's just about collectively coming together as a unit and being able to deliver. Shubman Gill, the captain, is probably still, finding his feet as a captain, and this is baptism by fire. He would want to be on the right side of the result, but hopefully there are some, mindful choices about the selection. There's no reason why India couldn't end up
Yeah.
on the right side of the result. So honestly, just keeping my fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Keeping your fingers crossed. All the Indian fans are keeping our fingers crossed in terms of Jasprit Bumrah. But if you're in the management shoes or in the shoes of Gautam Gambhir, Shubman Gill, and the others, keeping in mind the third test is at the iconic Lords. And you said before the series started that Bumrah is likely to play 3 test matches. Would you risk Bumrah for the second test, even if he's 80-85% fit?
Well, I think I would, because you're one down, and that's, I think, the
Exactly.
biggest reason why they would look at Bumrah. Because if you again lose another test, it's almost like you're at the brink of losing the series altogether. And with the WTC, coming up, I mean, WTC cycle in mind, England already have got 4 points. So if they get another four, then they are certainly ahead in the race of all of you. So I think that's a concern which India would need to address, and perhaps Bumrah would be risked even in this test looking forward. And based on the result, maybe they'll decide what to do in the all important Lord's test.
And has England, by any chance, helped India in terms of deciding their playing 11, considering that there's no Jofra Archer in the England's playing 11, which they have already announced by now?
Well, I think definitely, if you have someone like Archer, given the quality they already possess, because people like Josh Tongue, all of them have done pretty well. And, Archer comes in someone's place and he would only make the bowling a bit more stronger. And again, he's
Correct.
someone who is not novice with the bat either. He can also bat and, create those headaches down the order, which India often have. The problem with India is our tail doesn't do well, but the other tails do well against us when
True.
we bowl. So I think Archer would be no stranger to that situation also, and of course the fiery pace that he adds. So I think one way India have been, treated leniently. I know Archer's not available, and that's maybe why he's not playing. But it's perhaps just the kind of luck that God gifted India, especially when they're one down.
Absolutely. One down. Jofra Archer is not playing. Right time to play. Have your best 11. Probably have Mumra and make it 1-1. Maybe risk him at Lords and make it 2-1. And then we will see if we can certainly do that. That's kudos to India. But what about the players to watch out for, Neha? Let's take a look into that. And here is what I've gone for. I've gone for KL Rahul, Rishabh Pant, and Mohammad Siraj are my three players to watch out for. For England, it's Ben Duckett, it's Joe Root, it's Bryden Carse. I was tempted to go for Archer only when I got to know that he's not in the playing 11. Gone back to Carse because he's a handy batter as well. Your thoughts? Anything different?
I think there's solid picks there, Preetham. No complaints on that front. I think as much as people were focusing on Rishabh Pant, the kind of performance he put in that first test. I think KL Rahul's knock, especially in that second innings, just went under the radar. I mean, scoring those 137 crucial runs. The partnership with
By any chance or without a doubt, can you tell me, does he have the best technique in the Indian side as of now?
Yeah, I'm very tempted to say that honestly. Tactically gifted and even technique-wise, right? We just see him being at the top of his game. If not for Shubman Gill, definitely KL Rahul would have made a case for Test captain, but things happened otherwise. But even otherwise, just looking at your picks, they seem quite formidable. Again, excited to see how Siraj kind of fares in this second test. In the first test, we kind of saw him spraying everywhere, looking a little I don't know, banterish with the English batters and all of that. But I just hope he gets his line and length right because he's had the experience of playing in these conditions. So if Bumrah is not playing, you'd ideally want him to be your pace spearhead. So just, hoping that he can come good and finally show us what he's made of after all those repeated snubs in the recent past.
True.
Hope some of that fire can actually drive him.
Absolutely. And by any chance, Orko, when we talk about Mohammad Siraj, by any chance, is he missing somebody with jersey number 18 behind the slip cordon as well for him to charge him up? Because he was trying it by himself against Ben Duckett, but it was not happening. Thoughts on coming around? What about England's lone spinner, Shoaib Bashir? I think he has got an edge ahead of Jack Leach at the moment. Has he been that effective or has he been defensive? Because I can certainly tell you Rishabh Pant is going to go once again behind him.
Well, definitely. Even I was often baffled with the kind of backing Shoaib Bashir has received. I thought that there are ample amount of bowlers they could look at, and if they really don't want to go with spin, maybe add an extra pacer because they do have a number of paces. So I really didn't understand the urgency of playing Shoaib Bashir in almost every test. They have literally done that in almost 1 year or so. Perhaps they've always gone with Shoaib Bashir even ahead
Can
of
we
Jack
say
Leach.
Joe Root
There
is
was
a
a
little
time.
bit with par with Shoaib Bashir?
I mean, yeah, you should not say that because Bashir is a frontline spinner. But if you look at the effectivity, I think certainly Joe Root is at par. And they did have someone like Hartley. For some reason, they don't look at him anymore. I think he was good against
Correct.
India in the home series, that Hyderabad test where he literally rattled us apart. And I think that would have also been a case they might have looked at unless he's injured. But certainly some reason why he's back, perhaps his batting abilities. People say that, he's no novice to number 11. He's actually more than just that, so maybe that's maybe why they're looking at him. But some English media, they kind of rate him as some Nathan Lyon, but he has nowhere been anywhere near that. So I think with time they would realize that. I hope they don't realize it against us, but with time they certainly would, because I think there are enough options to look at ahead of Shoaib Bashir as well.
I think I'm sorry, but respect to Shoaib Bashir, but I think Sajid Khan from Pakistan is equivalent or even better in terms of providing quality than Shoaib Bashir in terms of the media that they said. But talking about the key battles about this one as well, Neha, let's take a look at that. And here comes the key battles I have gone for, Neha. It is Rishabh Pant versus Shoaib Bashir, as expected. Ben Duckett versus Mohammad Siraj is my battle number 2. And Chris Wokes versus KL Rahul is my battle number 3. Your thoughts on that? Anything different? Are we going for Indian bowlers as well, according to you?
I mean, again, Preetham, formidable picks there because sometimes we see our Indian batters sort of struggle against the English pace there. But KL Rahul versus Chris Wokes, quite an interesting one because KL Rahul, as much as we call him a tactician and someone who's very, technically gifted. Sometimes, does fall prey to that one odd shot and you'd be like, man, you just threw away, what has been such a good,
Correct.
sort of a platform you've built. And even just looking at some of India's pacers, right, against the England openers, as much as Ben Duckett and Zach Raleigh were really having a good time in the first test, but probably the Indian pacers would have kind of made a proper game plan against this duo. So
Yeah.
getting the early flurry of wickets will be important, and that's probably another
Absolutely.
matchup I'd be interested in.
Absolutely, because they are going to go all guns blazing. They will carry on with that aggressive mode, and we always said in the final day, 300, 350, it was a cakewalk until unless you get all the 10 wickets. You cannot play for a draw against England, and you can certainly cannot. But earlier in the show, Orko, you were talking about having an extra spinner. Probably it was Washington Sundar or Kuldeep Yadav. Interestingly, has Kuldeep Yadav got an edge because of this battle? Ben Duckett versus Ravindra Jadeja. He was reverse sweeping Jadeja time and time again, finding the fence. Can certainly do that against Washington Sundar as well? Can Kuldeep Yadav be the only man that can trap him in front?
Well, I think sweeping Jadeja itself is a big task. I mean, he's a very flat trajectory bowler, and more often than not, we see players struggle to sweep against him, even in the white ball format. It's quite surprising as to how Duckett did that with so much consistency. Like, whenever he tried to sweep, he hardly missed. So, certainly, perhaps some technical excellence that he possesses, and we have seen that across formats. Duckett is like perhaps one of those very underrated batters in the
Yeah,
current cricket scenario who does well in almost all formats. And again, his technical prowess is showing how he's sweeping with ease the likes of Jadeja. I think Kuldeep also wouldn't be that difficult to sweep because Kuldeep again is a wrist spinner, so perhaps the kind of loop, the flight that he gives could perhaps help him sweep. But because the turn, that additional turn that people like Kuldeep generate, that could create a bit of surprise. And even if not for Duckett, the other batters they have, people like Brook or Joe Root, they have had their share of struggles against Kuldeep. So if you
correct.
look at that overall, I think Kuldeep certainly deserves to be in the playing 11 ahead of a Washington Sundar as well.
I certainly do think because according to me, away from home, 20 wickets should be a priority more than scoring 350, 400, 450 runs, which ended up being a defeat for your side. But now coming to the interesting factors, Neha, England playing 11 already announced. Let's take a look into that, please. Certainly going with an unchanged one. Thoughts were going around Jofra Archer. If Jofra Archer had to play, if he certainly plays in the third test, who is the one that is making way, according to you? According to me, I think it's going to be Bryden Cars, or is it Josh Tongue?
Yeah, Preetham, I think England again, once again doing their bat ball stuff, just announcing the playing 11 a couple of days in advance. Not very surprised that they would, kind of want to go in with an unchanged playing 11. Jofra Archer is, playing red ball cricket after a very significant time span. So, just want to give him time to get used to the
Yeah.
conditions. But he eventually, if he does end up coming in probably for that third test, I think someone like Bryden Cars probably making way for him. Because again, you still want to play a spinner, right? Shoaib Bashir, as much as we bashed him on the show, would probably still be their sort of a spinner they would want to opt for. So I'd probably see Bryden Cars because Josh Tongue actually did well in the first test and been tracking his progress for some time ever since he made his debut back. I think it was versus Ireland, and then saw his
Yeah.
performances versus Zimbabwe also quite recently. Is able to generate that pace and just get the right aligning lens and just gets you those wickets, right? Which is very important.
True
So
that,
yeah.
but additionally, according to this question as well, do you see Chris Wokes playing all five Test match? He's a premium customer for England, or if not, if he doesn't play, then Jofra Archer can certainly come from him at Lords. I don't think so. Any bowler will miss out playing at Lords.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Wokes too, right? For the kind of experience he has, having been a part of this England setup for the longest time, I think, in all fairness, we would kind of expect him to play all the five tests. England is obviously missing the likes
Mhm.
of Mark Wood, who was probably expected to join sometime later in the series, but
I
at
think
least still
fifth
in
Test
good
should
lead.
be his target, not anything before.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So in that case, we'd still need Chris Wokes, kind of be the leader of that pace department.
Exactly.
Again, this is an England side that's missing, your James Andersons, your Stuart Broads, and all of that. So Chris Wokes sort of invokes that sense of confidence. But yeah, definitely Archer will make his presence felt in the series at some point, but probably not this soon.
Okay, so according to you, Chris Wokes certainly keeps his spot for, especially for the England's test match and Lord's test match as well. But interestingly, What's happening with the England captain as well, Orko? More than with the bat, he's coming with that ball at the stroke of a session and picking up crucial wickets. How important has he been with the ball? He is the beast. Ben Stokes, your thoughts on that, please?
Well, definitely. He's a very crucial player for them as an all rounder, not just as a batter and as a captain, because he always had that bowler in him. The kind of relation we have with Hardik Pandya in white ball cricket. His bowling was as crucial as his batting. I think Stokes brings in a similar amount of impact for England in the red ball setup. So I think he starting to bowl is a great sign for English cricket because, he certainly has something in his bowling, that
Correct.
skiddy lines. He's not a genuine swing bowler, but he certainly gets the ball talking, an occasional bouncer, which is pretty good at those cross seam deliveries that he's well known for. I think he has got a wicket taker in him, and that only adds an extra bowling option. Especially when you know that you have an Indian team, people like Pant would go after people like
He
Bashir.
did
So I
not. I
think if
was about
Bashir
to come to that.
goes
That
through a bad
he will
spell, then someone, yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
was
I mean,
simply
if
about
if
to tell you that if Rishabh Pant is there in the middle, then I'm certainly saying that Ben Stokes will not come into the attack.
well, I think he would, as we previously talked about, playing fire with fire. If they see that Bashir is not doing pretty well, then perhaps his overs would be taken over by Stokes. So I think Stokes is just that proper fourth seamer which you would need in the team, and he being fit is of course good news for English cricket.
100%. He's definitely an asset for the England side and he's prioritizing this format as well. What about the Indian 11? This is where all the confusions were there, despite what about coming into the press conference and all. Your two of your thoughts will come as well. As of now, Orko, let's take a look at the Indian playing 11. This is where I've gone for. I have no idea how do you fit in a Washington Sundar or a Kuldeep Yadav and going with the two spinners until unless you be brave enough and drop Karun Nair or Co. This is what I've gone with. Sticking to Prasidh Krishna, sticking to Mohammad Siraj, sticking to Jasprit Bumrah. If Jasprit Bumrah doesn't play, unfortunately, it has to be Akashdeep. I would always want Arshdeep Singh. Your thoughts on the 11? How many changes?
Well, I think a definite change is Shardul not playing. I think Nitish adds a bit more value with the bat, and I've always been very much impressed with his bowling abilities, especially in domestic cricket. He's a proper swing bowler, and I think he's made for English conditions. So
Okay.
perhaps Nitish would be just the perfect lower order option that one could think of alongside being a pretty capable part-time bowler. And I think someone like Akashdeep might come in only if Bumrah is unfit, but otherwise he doesn't make the bill. It's sad that they don't look at Ashdeep just yet in the red ball format. Maybe sooner than later in the series they would look at him. If they really want to bring in Kuldeep, then maybe they might have to look to sacrifice a batter, maybe like Karun Nair. But again, people may say that it's a bit harsh because it's just been a single test. So if that harshness is what they look at, then perhaps most of the troops who played the first test would
Correct.
continue to play. Prasid, I think, would retain his place more definitely because he did get wickets. Of course, he's gone for runs, but I think if he gets his length right, he does have a good test bowler in him. And if he adjusts himself accordingly, I think we could see the best of him. So I don't see too many changes, but yeah, a definite change would certainly be Nitish coming in place of Shardul.
So as of now, Nitish Kumar Reddy comes in for Shardul Thakur according to you. You're sticking to just one spinner. Neha, how much do you agree with Orko and what are your opinions as well?
No, I think Orko really brought in a brilliant point of NKR, coming in as a sort of an upgrade, for Shardul Thakur because the man clearly flattered to deceive, right? I mean, we could see him not do well with the bat
Correct.
or with the ball. So
And he
that
was
was kind of
underbowled in the
interesting.
first innings.
Exactly, which just made it very bizarre as to what was the choice and why was he included in the first place. But again, it's just talking about India's playing level. It really seems like such an honest ask. Where do we include someone like a Washington or a
Exactly.
Kuldeep? Because it again just goes back to the philosophy of hey, do we back our players to the hilt? We at least give them 2-3 games in the tour and then sort of bring in those necessary reinforcements. It's obviously going to be very, very difficult for the think tank, make a decision. But I think I more or less agree with that playing 11. If Bumrah isn't playing, I'd be very, very tempted to bring in someone like Arshdeep. Because again, Akashdeep, this would probably be like what? A very difficult and a stern test for him. But Arshdeep, on the
Yeah.
other hand, has played a little bit of county cricket. So if that counts for something, maybe he can bring in that sort of an X factor. So yeah, I think that would be an
So,
interesting change.
like Orko said about if you have to play a second spinner, it has to be sacrificing the spot of Karun Nair. Do you agree with that, or you are going with one spinner? Because keeping in mind what Ryan Tendashkade said.
I think, yeah, probably, we'll have to bring in that second spinner because it's just putting too much load on Jadeja. And the fact that I think probably India is looking at him, at least in overseas conditions, as more of a batter who can probably bowl. Bringing in a frontline spinner would really ease a lot of problems. And Kuldeep has done well, to his credit.
True.
The fact that he hasn't gotten that sort of a backing speaks, volumes about the think tank, not about his performances. So probably if the Indian think tank wants to go in that direction, Karun Nair gets the axe because this is not his preferred playing position anyways, right? Coming in at six,
Yeah. And
doing
that's what the
doing
question
the
was
damage
coming up
control.
early on. Where does Karuna go back to three? Can we have Sai Sudarshan at six? You're saying Kuldeep for Karun Nair. Orko says either of Kuldeep or Washi for Karun Nair. So Karun Nair is the victim who unfortunately once again makes way into the side. If you have to play a second spinner, pressure on you guys now. It's time for predictions. Let's take a look into that. Predictions time now, and I start with you, Orko. Your thoughts on this important game? Edgbaston not a happy hunting ground for India. Can they win this? Can they draw it? Or can England make it 2-0?
Well, I think England would win it. I mean, as an Indian fan, I shouldn't be saying that, but purely because of the record that we had in Edgbaston, I think it wouldn't change that much. The boys did look a bit depleted, especially the bowling having the sort of problems they have.
Yep.
I do have some amount of confidence of Nitish. If he plays and the kind of innings he played in Australia, in Melbourne, if he gets
Yeah.
going in the lower order, then a lot of problems would be sorted. I think Nitish, the bowler, is also someone people don't rate very highly, but I do believe that there's a good part-time medium pacer in him. But if such boxes are ticked, only then I hope India to majorly upset the English side. But otherwise, if you look at track record and current form, I do believe 60-40 is the possibility of an England win this time.
60-40 towards England, according to you. Second test, 2-0 for England. Neha, anything different?
Not really, Preetham, because as Orko rightly pointed out, India looked like a very depleted unit.
Yeah.
Especially in the last few phases of that first Test match, they'll really have to conjure up magic to
Yeah.
be on the right side of the result. So I'd probably give England that sort of an edge coming into this match. Under Ben Stokes, they look like a very different unit, and
Correct.
unless India sort of gets a few bases sorted, it's going to be a very, very difficult and an uphill sort of a series. As an Indian fan, you obviously want an Indian win, but it just seems like England is a better unit now and much more settled, considering its home conditions for them.
So what's your percentage?
I'd probably go 70-30 in favor of England being at 70 and India at 30.
Okay, 70-30 in terms of England. Both of you are being brutally honest. Both of you think that the hosts are quite favourites moving on to this second test at Edgbaston, where they have a wonderful record against Team India. Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you to all the viewers for watching this video, as well as to all the people that are coming in the comment section to give your interesting thoughts. What will be India's playing 11 while England have already announced? Can we play two spinners? Will Bumrah come in? Can we win a test match? That's more important. Can we level the series? Fingers crossed, just like Neha has. Don't forget to subscribe to Fifth Umpire. Press the bell icon as well. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.